What's up, everybody? Lines on Paper here, and I will admit this video is painful for me to record, but at the same time, as of a lot of you, I have been stuck at home during this whole outbreak, and I know the country's starting to open up again and everything else, but while I've been at home, I took the time to reread a lot of back issues and get caught up on a lot of the new stuff that I hadn't been reading. And finally, I just end up having to ask myself and the world, what the heck has happened to the Amazing Spider-Man? Where has this book gone so far off the rails, and really, when did that happen? So Spider-Man is and has been my favorite character. He is the character that got me into comics way back in the day. He is literally, the Amazing Spider-Man is the first title that I collected coming up. It's the one that created my love of comics. He has always been my favorite comic book character collected. Even now, with as hard as it's been, I have been sticking with his title. Now, before I go any further, I just want to remind everybody about my Indiegogo campaign, Malevolent Rising issue 3, which at the time of this recording is currently funding on Indiegogo. So I really hope you guys will check that out. I will put a link in the description below. But anyway, on with my little rant here. Now, as anyone who's a long-time fan of Spider-Man, or pretty much of comics, knows that a number of years ago, they gave us the skunk fume that was the Brand New Day, which was Joe Quesada, who at the time was the editor-in-chief's way of getting rid of Peter Parker and Mary Jane's marriage, and instead of doing that in a good, coherent storytelling way, he did some kind of nonsense with Mephisto and reworked the world and gave us Brand New Day, which started out okay. They felt kind of like classic Spider-Man stories. They had good artwork, good writing, but it was this kind of round table of creative teams. You never had the same writer for more than an issue or two, and the artists kept changing on us, and it was hard. That makes it hard to follow a title when it starts getting that inconsistent. Dan Slott was there in the beginning, kind of guiding the whole thing, and he would eventually become the writer, and he stayed on the book for a really long time. And in my opinion, a bit too long. Not so much that I thought his run was terrible. I didn't think it was exceptionally great, but I did feel like by the time he was done, he had run out of stuff to say long before I left, in my opinion. But he stayed on as kind of a guiding hand with a group of interim writers coming in until eventually just taking over the title himself as head writer, with, again, a merry-go-round of artists. I don't think he had a creative team for more than about 6 issues at a time. It had positives and negatives. I remember there was a story called Spider Island that I really liked. The Superior Spider-Man came out of that run, which was an excellent comic book. I thought it was really good. And honestly, it was probably the first time in a long time that I was looking forward to Spider-Man titles again. Again, you had the problem of the round table of artists, but at least it was about 4 different artists that were cycling in and out. And part of the reason that is, and I think it's part of the problem with Spider-Man right now, is the fact that he comes out this book comes out every 2 weeks. So no normal artist can keep up with that. So you end up with these round-robin creative teams, not to mention you're asking your audience to spend quite a bit of money on Spider-Man at $3.99 a copy. I mean, that's $8 a month. That's a streaming service subscription practically these days. So Dan Slott finally ended his run, and Ryan Ottley and Nick Spencer took over, and I was super thrilled to hear about this creative team because I really love Ryan Ottley's artwork. I will buy most books if he's just attached to it, regardless of what it is, just because I like looking at his art so much. Nick Spencer, I knew him from the Superior Foes of Spider-Man. That was about my main source of knowledge where it came to his writing, but I like that title, and I always kind of felt that it was a better title than it deserved to be, kind of. But therein, I think a success in that title is a bit of the problem. More on that in a second. First, kind of focus on the good in this book. Nick Spencer did bring the humor back to Spider-Man, which was something that was missing, which I appreciate. And a lot of the classic villains are making an appearance. Like in this series, in this image here, you see Chance, who I don't think we've seen since the mid 300s, show up. And again, Ryan Ottley's artwork is just perfection. I think Spider-Man is probably his ideal character to draw based on his style. Very, very motion-oriented, very kinetic. When he gets a chance to draw some good violent fight scenes, his violence can just, if you've seen his Invincible work, just gets brutal and visceral. And I would really like to see him be able to turn that up a bit more on Spider-Man. He's gotten a chance to cut loose on it a few times, but again, because of that round robin creative team, because Spider-Man is a twice a month book and not a monthly book like I think maybe it should be, you don't get a chance to showcase. He only gets to do like every third storyline, and it's not enough. And then when he's not there, we've got these fill-in artists, which sometimes are good, sometimes are not. And it's just hard to stay invested in a character when each issue is so inconsistent. And the artwork is inconsistent, and I have to say, a lot of the ways, so is the storyline. I mean, we have a lot of classic villains showing up. Here's Kraven the Hunter, made an appearance in a storyline called The Hunted, one of the few events that's happened in Amazing Spider-Man since this new volume of the book relaunched. And while I like to see Spider-Man go up against his old villains, I liked Kraven's exit. I thought his death is one of the best in comics. I thought bringing him back was a mistake. Keeping him around is a mistake. I don't want to ruin what happens in The Hunted. It was an okay storyline. It was okay. No, I would even say it was just okay for a Kraven storyline. But check it out. I'm sure there's a trade paperback of it now if you ever want to go back and read this, if you haven't already. If you have, I wouldn't mind knowing what you thought of it in the comments below. But other than that, I mean, you've got J. Jonah Jameson running a podcast. Nick Spencer relies too much on his Superior Foes of Spider-Man crew, in my opinion. Especially Boomerang, but the characters show up. There's a few interesting kind of storylines maybe developing here with them, and one of the strengths of Spider-Man has always been he's got a lot of plot lines and threads going throughout the issue that kind of are outside of whatever his main storyline of the issue is, and eventually they kind of culminate into something bigger. And those are the days when Spider-Man's good, and it looks like he's trying to do that, but it's just those little storylines are either A, uninteresting, or B, taking too long. For instance, he's got a storyline about some mysterious hooded figure with a centipede motif, and I don't know, that's been going since the first issue. I know about as much about that character now as I did when he first appeared, and Spider-Man really hasn't dealt with him. I know Mysterio doesn't like him, and I still don't even know why that is. But that brings us again to the problem of Boomerang. He has brought this character in and made him Spider-Man's roommate, and a little of this character goes a long way. I was never a fan of Boomerang just as a villain to begin with. I thought he was just kind of okay, and his attitude of kind of like this pompous, smug, arrogant guy, it's fun, but he's just around way too much. And the storylines where you got the Spider-Man hanging out with this guy, going to weird Spider-Man themed trivia nights, a thing that actually happened. I don't know. It doesn't do anything for the story. The comedy feels forced. It's like a poorly written buddy comedy. And that's not what I want out of my Spider-Man. You know, when Spider-Man's at his best, he has a solid supporting cast that are contributing to the story, but Peter Parker is mainly in the forefront. Everyone there is enhancing the story, and sure, they have their own plot lines and threads going on, but they always seem to come back around to either Peter or Spider-Man, which is how you kept his supporting cast universe tight. And those are the things that I miss. And that's the thing that I feel is missing in this book completely. And you look at like Mary Jane here in the image. Yeah, they put MJ and him back together, which is great. A lot of the fans wanted it, but she's barely in the book, and when she does, she doesn't have a lot of impact. I think there's been more Black Cat storylines with Felicia Hardy than there have been with Mary Jane. So I feel she's pretty underutilized. I know she had her own miniseries and title, which took her out of the pages for a few months, but even before that she just was underutilized, barely there, and when she was there she really didn't contribute a lot to the story. So I don't know, I find myself still buying the book. I'll still read it when I get around to it, but it's definitely not a priority every 2 weeks now that it comes out. And at $3.99 a book, I have to question whether $8 a month is worth it to keep up with the title. It's a hard one for me to quit because it's been steady on my pull list for so many years now. But at the same time, especially going back and rereading some of my old issues during this quarantine when the industry was shut down, it made me remember what I used to like about this character, and sadly contrasted how bad the title has gotten in the meantime. I would recommend to Marvel maybe put this book to a monthly status so the stories can pace a bit better and you can keep a creative team that's consistent on every issue and start putting out an experience that's a bit more consistent month to month. But I don't know how much longer I can give this title. But anyway, before I go, I just wanted to visit one more time the Indiegogo page. And again, we just launched at the time of this recording. I've got one backer so far. I'm hoping that'll grow. So hopefully you guys will help me. Thanks for sitting around talking comics with me, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks again. Bye.